before I get into the other coaches and like lacrosse style stuff that I learned, was I'm walking through the vendors area, and there's a couple goals, and I was talking to the Bonet people about how they should make a 3x goal, and I see a little metal 3x goal. And I'm like, this is the best 3x goal I've ever seen. Like, it's not plastic, it won't break. I could shoot on it with a real actual ball. You know, you wouldn't play 3x with a real ball, but still, it's a great goal for the 3x game. And so I start chopping it up with them. And so there's this old dude there who's like, you know, part of the vendor thing. And so it was Steve and I think Harry. So I start talking to him, and he's like, yeah, Harry Queener. And I'm like, wait, Queener? Like Brett Queener? Like Bryce Queener? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, dude, I showed your son a trick at the 2016 World Lacrosse Championships in Denver. And so if you've seen some of my trick videos, I do this trick where I essentially toss the ball up, catch it in my hand that's on the bottom of the stick. I throw my stick around, and it rotates around my hand. And as I did that, Brett was like, oh, dude, you got to do it again. Show me that. Like, that was sweet. And as he tried it, what was funny was that since Brett's a goalie, if you don't know, he's a very, 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 very good goalie. He had broken his thumb so many times that his thumb couldn't wrap back around the stick. And so as he was messing with it, he ended up, getting it. But it was just cool to meet someone, the father of this player who I'd watched forever, who was really good. And he and Steve, he runs Hotbed Lacrosse. And so this is a nice shout out for them. They were very nice. And going into this IMLCA convention, I was very adamant about going to as many of these talks as possible. And thank you to Coaches Insider and the IMLCA convention for ensuring that all of these sessions got filmed, because after I got in and started talking to everyone, I realized that the connections I was going to make with the people at the conference were far more important than the actual presentations in the moment, because I could go back and I could watch those presentations, right? So as I'm sitting there talking with Mr. Queener and Steve, another coach came up who knew Mr. Queener from, I think it's Penn is how I would say it, is their little village. And that's how he called it. He called it a village. And the fact that he called it a village makes me want to create Parker as a village, or create Aurora as a village. It's not just an extension of Denver. It's that our locations are villages. We are a village of people, and we get to interact and all of that, and it just will bring the wholesome nature of the sport back together. But so I loved that he said Penn Ann's a village. So there were a couple sections within the programming of the presentations that I was so excited to go see. And there were some, and this is one of those, there was one time frame, 1 hour, that I was like, I want to go to all of these. You know, I want to go to every single one, or I really, really want to find this one. But so as I began talking with everyone at the Hotbed Lacrosse booth, I actually ended up just staying outside of the presentations and talking with these people who I had met. And so we just started, we just continued to talk about how lacrosse was in each area, what people did. I forget the name of the coach, which I'm going to say 1,000 times more, but he was telling me about how back when he was really building in this program, he would have a note card on every single kid who tried the sport. And if that kid didn't show up the next week, he would call the parents and be like, hey, I was just wondering where Brad is. I really wanted to make sure that he, comes next week, and I didn't see him, so I wanted to make sure. And I feel like that is, it's definitely definitely on me. I know for my clinics that I run on Saturdays, when certain people aren't there, I really like when parents let me know that people aren't there, but I have never taken the initiative to call those parents and say, where was Billy? I just want to make sure that he's still going to play and he's still going to, be here. But so I found it pretty astounding that, I had the comfort of the fact that I could get this information after that allowed me to build these relationships. But so every single presentation that I walked in on after that moment, I was late to. And everyone always says, don't be late, except for John Wooden. And so this is a huge point that I think is, so it's complicated, because just bear with me for just a second. So as I outline this principle, John Wooden does not allow people to be late for specific things, right? Like practice. Don't be late. Make sure your socks are on perfect. Make sure that you're not late. Now, if you are in an intimate conversation with someone, be late to whatever that next thing is if that next thing isn't something where you have to be on time, right? So most of the presentations that I went to, I had questions, individual questions to ask afterwards, not just questions within the presentation. So as the presentations ended, I would always walk up and I would speak with the presenter, and I would ask them a question that I had and yada, yada, yada. And as that was going on, I would be late for the next presentation.